The rain came down harder than expected that morning, cold, relentless, and unkind. On the side of a quiet highway outside Denver, Jack Miller stood with one hand shielding his eyes and the other tightening the hood of his worn-out jacket. He'd just dropped his 6-year-old daughter, Emma, at kindergarten and was on his way to the garage where he worked part-time. His gas tank needle was nearly kissing D, his rent was overdue, and payday was still a week away. That's when he saw her, a sleek black Mercedes pulled over on the shoulder, hazard lights blinking. A woman stood beside it, drenched and clearly flustered. Most drivers passed without a second glance. Jack slowed, sighed, and muttered, "Guess I'm gonna be late again." He pulled over. The woman turned as he approached, clutching her phone that had just died in her hand. "Oh, thank God," she said, her voice trembling. "My tire blew, and I can't get a signal out here." Jack gave a kind, reassuring smile. "No worries, ma'am. I can help you with that." It took him 15 minutes of kneeling in the mud, hands covered in grease and rainwater, to get her tire changed. When he was done, she looked at him, soaked, shivering, but smiling politely like it was the most natural thing in the world to help a stranger for nothing. She reached into her purse. "Please, at least let me pay you something." Jack shook his head. "No, ma'am. Just glad you're safe. I've got a little girl waiting for me tonight, and I'd hope someone would help her if she were in trouble." The woman's expression softened. "You're a good man," she said quietly. "There aren't many left like you." Jack just chuckled. "Tell that to my landlord." She laughed, and something about his honesty, his tired but warm demeanor, stayed with her long after he drove away. 3 days later, Jack came home to find an envelope taped to his apartment door. It wasn't the usual eviction notice, but a clean white envelope with his name neatly written across it. Inside was a letter. "Dear Jack. You helped me last week on the highway. You didn't know me, yet you treated me with kindness and respect. I was on my way to an important meeting that day, one that changed my life. I'm the owner of Redwood Motors, and we've just opened a new service branch in town. I'd like to offer you a full-time position, benefits included, because people like you are exactly who I want representing my company. P.S. I also included something for Emma. You mentioned her with such love, it reminded me of my own father. See you soon, Jack. Olivia Hart." Inside the envelope was also a check, not small, not symbolic, but enough to pay off his rent for months and finally get ahead. Jack stood there frozen, the letter trembling in his hand. Emma peeked around the corner holding her stuffed bunny. "Daddy, are you okay?" He knelt down, scooped her up, and said softly, "Yeah, sweetheart, looks like someone up there's finally giving us a break." Jack's first few weeks at Redwood Motors felt like stepping into another world. The garage was spotless, the tools brand new, and for the first time in years, he wasn't counting pennies at the gas pump. Still, he couldn't quite believe how fast things had turned around. Olivia, the woman whose tire he'd changed, didn't treat him like an employee, she treated him like a friend. She'd stop by the shop, sometimes with fresh coffee, sometimes just to chat. One afternoon, as Jack was adjusting a car engine, she leaned against the doorframe. "You know," she said with a smile, "I keep thinking about that day in the rain. You didn't know who I was, yet you didn't hesitate to help." Jack shrugged modestly. "Would have done the same for anyone." "That's exactly why I hired you," she said softly. "You remind me that success means nothing if we forget how to care for people." A month later, Olivia organized a company event, a family picnic for all the employees. It was simple, warm, and filled with laughter. Emma was there too, chasing butterflies in the grass, her giggles lighting up the afternoon. Olivia walked over and handed Jack a paper plate full of barbecue. "She's adorable," she said, watching Emma. "She's the reason you stopped that day, isn't she?" Jack nodded. "Yeah. I kept thinking, if it were her stranded somewhere, I'd hope someone would stop. He smiled faintly. Guess the universe paid me back in full. Olivia looked at him thoughtfully. You know, Jack, I've met plenty of people with money. But not many with heart. I'm glad our paths crossed. For a moment, they stood in quiet gratitude, two people from completely different worlds, connected by a single act of kindness on a rainy road. Weeks turned into months. Jack quickly rose through the ranks, not because he wanted recognition, but because he treated every customer like family. Word spread, the mechanic who fixed cars with honesty, not price tags. Then one winter evening, just before closing time, a young woman pulled in with a flat tire, the same look of panic Olivia once had. Jack smiled and walked over, déjà vu washing over him. Looks like you could use some help, he said. The woman sighed in relief. Thank you. I thought I was stuck for hours. As he worked, Olivia stepped out of her office and watched quietly from the doorway, a small, proud smile on her face. Jack finished the job, waved off the woman's attempt to pay, and said his now familiar line. Just glad you're safe. Maybe one day, you'll help someone else too. The woman smiled back. I will. I promise. When she drove away, Olivia approached Jack. You've come full circle, haven't you? He chuckled. Guess kindness really does keep the wheels turning. That night, as Jack tucked Emma into bed, she whispered, Daddy, are we rich now? He laughed softly, brushing her hair back. Not in the way you think, sweetheart. But yeah, we're rich in all the ways that matter. Final mess.